Gilles de Rais was one of France's greatest war heroes. He was a noble warrior who fought alongside the legendary Joan of Arc, earning him immense fame and the position of Marshal of France, a title held by very few and which cemented his place in French history. But all this came crashing down when Joan of Arc was executed in 1431 and the great war hero turned to the dark side. He abandoned his military career, wasted his huge fortune on sumptuous spectacles and devilish occult experiments, before finally descending into unbelievable depravity. In 1440, his crimes were uncovered and the whole country was shocked. He was accused of the abduction, torture, and murder of dozens, and perhaps even hundreds of children. The details of these crimes were so horrible that they were almost beyond belief, and the legend of his sadistic acts would later serve as the inspiration for the terrifying French folktale character of Bluebeard, a symbol of terrible evil lurking just beneath the surface of a monstrously cruel upper class. Born in 1404, Gilles de Rais was the son of a wealthy family from Brittany. From an early age, he displayed a rebellious streak. After studying law, he chose a military career and participated in several battles against the English during the 100 Years' War. While fighting in the siege of Orleans in 1429, he met the peasant girl Joan of Arc, who inspired the French army to fight against the English invaders. De Rais became one of her most trusted comrades in arms, and together they won several key battles, until Joan of Arc was captured by the Burgundians in 1430. Despite a massive ransom demanded by her captors, she was handed over to the English and tragically burned at the stake on May 30th, 1431, after being convicted of heresy by a church court. The death of Joan of Arc deeply affected de Rais and marked a turning point in his life. He grew a thick beard, dressed only in black, and withdrew from society, shunning his former glory and wasting his fortune on jousting tournaments and games of chance, which he lost heavily. His companions reported that he became increasingly obsessed with magic and the occult, seeking to revive Joan of Arc through dark rituals. As the strange and reclusive nobleman hosted orgies and squandered his money, rumors began to spread that he was involved in the killings of young boys. These suspicions focused on a remote castle in Tifages that de Rais had acquired around 1435, along with another property in Rouen. The buildings had originally been part of a monastery, but he converted them into a luxurious residence with lavish furnishings and hired servants by the score to cater to his every whim. No one was allowed inside without his permission, and any locals who ventured too close to the castle walls were warned to stay away or suffer the consequences, although there were no solid leads. Many townspeople believed that the missing children were being taken to the castle to satisfy the sick desires of the nobleman. For a while, these rumors were ignored. After all, it wasn't unusual for children to go missing in those days. But as the years went on and more kids disappeared, a formal investigation was inevitable. In September 1440, Bishop Pierre Cochin of the Diocese of Le Mans dispatched to clergymen to determine whether or not de Rais was behind the crimes. This posed a bit of a problem, though. Not only was he a member of the French nobility and a decorated war hero, But he was also one of the richest men in France and extremely well connected, with many powerful enemies. The men assigned to investigate him knew they were up against a formidable figure and were understandably reluctant to stir up trouble. But with dozens of missing children and mounting pressure from the public, they knew they had to do their duty. So they quietly began looking for answers. Their first stop was de Rais's castle, where they discreetly questioned the staff and searched the grounds. But despite their best efforts, they found no evidence of foul play. Frustrated but undeterred, they decided to pay the nobleman a surprise visit at his home in Rouen. When they arrived, they were met by de Rais himself, who greeted them cordially and invited them to stay as long as they pleased. He gave them permission to search his property as well, but the results were the same as at his castle: nothing. The two clergymen were forced to leave empty-handed, much to the amusement of the local townspeople who taunted them for being duped by the nobleman. It seemed as if the case would go nowhere, but fortunately for the investigators, de Rais had made a crucial mistake. In his bid to cover up his crimes, he unwittingly provided the very evidence that would lead to his downfall. While giving the clergymen a tour of his house, he boasted about its lavish furnishings, which included tapestries depicting biblical scenes and portraits of his ancestors. But one item in particular caught the eye of one of the clergymen: a silver platter adorned with a grotesque image that sent a chill down his spine. It depicted two children being dragged toward a dark abyss, with one already submerged in its depths. At first, de Rais tried to brush off the image as nothing more than a piece of medieval art. But the clergyman wasn't convinced. He sensed that there was more to the story and decided to press the nobleman for answers. To his surprise, de Rais cracked and confessed to everything. He told them that he and his accomplices had enticed two children to the bedroom, on the pretext of showing them a miracle. Once they were inside, they tied them up, flogged them and forced them to watch as they defiled each other. Then they threw them into a vat of wine, drowned them, ripped off their heads and cut up their bodies, feeding some of the pieces to his dogs. The rest he either threw into the river or buried on the property. Horrified, the clergyman immediately placed the nobleman under arrest and returned to Le Mans to report his findings to Bishop Cochin. The news of the arrest spread like wildfire, and people from all over the region flocked to Rouen to catch a glimpse of the fallen hero. Meanwhile, de Rais was thrown into the city's main prison, and his accomplices were arrested as well. One of them, a man named Jean de Lalanue, was tortured into confessing, and his testimony contains some truly disturbing details. He claimed that de Rais had built a special oven in the castle of Tiffages for burning victims alive, and that the nobleman had committed similar atrocities, whereas he had in Rouen. This revelation led to the search of the castle, which revealed the remains of several children. With overwhelming evidence against them, de Rais and his accomplices were brought to trial. At first, the nobleman denied everything, claiming that the accusations were nothing but a plot to seize his land and fortune. But when it became clear that he wouldn't be able to escape the noose, he confessed to a large part of the charges. However, the validity of this confession has been a matter of debate ever since. Some historians believe that it was a genuine expression of remorse, while others argue that it was a clever ruse to gain favor with the court and avoid the death penalty. Nevertheless, the trial continued, and the full weight of the law came crashing down on de Rais and his accomplices. On June 29, 1440, de Rais and 3 of his accomplices were sentenced to be hanged and burned for their crimes. Another 4 accomplices received lesser sentences, with 2 being burned alive, 1 being broken on the wheel, and 1 given a life sentence in prison. On October 26, 1440, the condemned men were led to the gallows in the public square in Nantes. De Rais, however, surprised everyone by shedding tears and begging forgiveness from the families of his victims. He then voluntarily climbed onto the executioner's ladder, removed his outer garments, and laid his head on the block. The executioner raised his axe, but before it could fall, de Rais cried out, "Hold your hand, good friend." He requested a priest to hear his final confession and absolution, after which he bowed his head, and the axe fell, ending his life. As onlookers watched in morbid fascination, his body was then thrown onto a funeral pyre. But in a last-minute reprieve that nobody saw coming, de Rais's brother, Jean de Dunois, Duke of Nemours, paid the executioner 10,000 livres to remove the body from the pyre, as it was indecent to display the body of a Christian under such a shameful state. So while de Rais had been sentenced to have his body burned, he ended up receiving a proper burial instead. This unexpected turn of events enraged many who had lost their children, believing that the condemned man had bribed his way out of justice. However, the truth is that the reprieve may have been a genuine expression of mercy. After all, de Rais was once a national hero and the son of a respected family. Even in death, he was treated with honors reserved for the most important members of society. After his execution, the story of Gilles de Rais faded into obscurity. It wasn't until centuries later that his crimes resurfaced in the popular imagination, inspiring tales of a horrifying monster lurking just beneath the surface of French high society. Today, he is remembered as one of history's most notorious criminals and the inspiration for the terrifying character of Bluebeard. And that's all for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet and leave a like for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.